The winner to organize the 2022 FIFA World Cup is Qatar.
Qatar is the smallest country to ever host the world's biggest football tournament, and it's estimated to have spent over $300 billion overall for kickoffs, making it the most expensive World Cup in history.
Aimed it for Kutsa!
But to set aside the most prestigious event in international football, Qatar has opened itself to a spate of negative headlines.
Collective statement criticising Qatar's human rights record.
There have been concerns about how LGBTQ plus fans will be treated.
So the questions are, why has Qatar risked so much to host the 2022 World Cup? Is Qatar hiding something from us? What will happen after the World Cup? Ever since Qatar was announced by FIFA to host the World Cup in 2010, it has worked so hard to put everything in place for the competitions to happen within a short period of time.
Take it in your hands.
World-class infrastructure have been constructed, hotels and so much have been made to make ends meet. This World Cup has so many issues. Workers have died, human rights have been violated, corruption scandals within FIFA, and even the World Cup isn't carbon neutral as Qatar promised to deliver. Qatar being left behind for so long amongst its Gulf neighbours, in so many aspects, finds it a big opportunity to host the World Cup. The country will be very visible on the international market, and this is also personal interests for the Qatari leader, Tamim bin Hamad. Qatar wants to build its image as a global spotting hub, despite the criticisms the country has faced on human rights, which won't just go away like that.
27-year-old Shiva Tamang died in a building site accident on April the 19th.
In addition, Qatar wants to use this chance of hosting the World Cup to normalise about its denial of the 13 aspects it was demanded before the end of the blockade. These include its alleged connections with the terrorist groups. Qatar failed to share the Gulf state foreign policy, luring the Saudi and the UAE, the two biggest countries in the region, as it rejected to siege supporting groups like the Muslim Brothers, yet they much oppose Saudi Arabia and the UAE.
Did Qatar actually budge on any of the demands? Stop talking to Iran, remove Turkish boots on the ground, stop funding terrorism, lol, or close Al Jazeera? Well, no. Despite four larger nations going up against one.
Since the World Cup was to be beneficial to all Gulf neighbours, the blockade ended in 2021. Qatar denied to stop supporting the terrorist groups, and the fact that it's the host of the World Cup, it wants Saudi Arabia and the UAE to take its denial as a new normal. Well, do you think that Saudi Arabia and the UAE will adapt to the current situation for long? I don't think so. I guess after the World Cup, much will change within a blink of an eye. FIFA estimated over 5 billion people to go and watch the World Cup games in Qatar. On checking through the government website of Qatar, looking at their zoning maps, just in their capital city, Doha, you will realise that there is an isolated area. That's the small zone in blue, which is within the capital, but it's separated. And that brings us to questioning whether Qatar is hiding something from us. Ever since Qatar won to host the World Cup, they had a lot to do, because their country didn't have the infrastructure, so they needed to build up a bunch of stuff within a short period of time. So what they basically did was double down on their systems of recruiting people from other countries to get the construction done in a short period of time. They imported tons of labour from South Asia and Africa to come to make ends meet. The blue zone on the map is a place Qatar set aside to trap the imported labour and then make them to work to build all the things they want them to build for the purposes of the World Cup. They did this by paying a lot of its agents to go on ground in places like Bangladesh and Nepal to recruit workers to come to Qatar to get the construction done. It is very difficult to set charges on Qatar because before all this, the recruitment and stuff, the Qatari government came up with a law that doesn't allow bachelor workers to live in family zone areas. The whole mapped area in yellow is a family zone, and the small plot of land in blue is the area where bachelor workers live. All this said by the government came out to be wrong. These are the so-called bachelors, people who are trapped to work without no idea of ever going back home. Not mentioning the harsh working conditions, delay in payment, and also over-exploitation of the workers. Most of them don't want to go back home because of the high debts they are demanded back home. And also the tough situation they left back home. According to different human rights sources, over 2,000 workers were reportedly confirmed dead, leaving their families back home with a lot of misery. With all this happening, the Qatari government is still silent about these issues and much focused to deliver more than what it promised FIFA.
We are not claiming we are perfect, but it's a journey that we will ride. Let's be realistic and calm down rather than just jump into the wave so that let's talk about human rights. We all respect it, but we need to be a bit...
Despite Qatar not being listed among the top football nations, it has much invested into the football business ever since the country was controversially awarded by FIFA to host the World Cup. New stadiums, hotels, hospitals and roads have been constructed, and the total estimated cost of all infrastructure development in the country wraps up to $300 billion. With these big mega projects, all set for the purpose of the World Cup, and Qatar being a small region with a small population, 2.9 million residents, this leaves us questioning on what will really happen to Qatar after the World Cup. Qatar came up with a sustainable plan about its 8 stadiums that will be of no use after the World Cup. It's planning to demount many of them, such as Stadium 974 is going to be fully demounted and then sent to countries in need of improvement of their sporting facilities. The Lusail Stadium will be transformed into a community space, which will include health facilities, schools, and cafes, and so much more. Besides the stadium plannings, Qatar is likely to face the Human Rights Council on issues regarding human rights violations, as many controversies and reports emerge negative headlines on Qatar.
Reports suggest that more than 6,500 migrant workers from India, Pakistan, Nepal, Bangladesh and Sri Lanka have died in Qatar.
In our opinion, Qatar is also likely to get back into isolation and strong debates with its Gulf neighbours, as it doesn't agree with the Gulf foreign policies. So this time round it might even be more of a blockade. With all that being said, we would like to hear from you. Share your thoughts and observations in the comment section. Don't forget to leave a like and hit the subscribe button for more videos like this. I'll see you in the next video.